Hello and welcome to the Pathfinder Show. I'm Toni Gorman, your host. Today's show is being brought to you by Sewell's Funeral Home, located in Prince Frederick, Maryland. Welcome back to the show. So today's show, we're going to be talking about estate planning, probate, pre-needs, and final planning of life. And I have got two experts on that topic. And I have attorney Rose Crumpleton, and I have Gladys Sewell Brown with the Sewell Funeral Home. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you.
Rose, I'm going to start with you first. I want to ask you, how did you end up in law, and why did you choose this particular kind of law to go into?
I just wanted my own business, and I knew that, and I knew if I got a law degree, I could make some real impact.
Wow.
And make some change. My father was an attorney, my grandfather was an attorney, so I felt like I had some background and I knew a little bit about being in the practice of law. And then estates and trusts is a very family-friendly area of law, and I also do probate work, which is after somebody dies, the court supervision of the distribution of someone's assets. Anyway, it's very family-friendly. I have children, and that was one of the main reasons I got into this area of law, but it's also a very interesting area, and I have a bachelor's degree in finance, and that has helped me tremendously in doing estate planning and tax planning for clients.
I bet. So I invited the two of you here today because I highly suspect that your businesses cross paths a lot. And Gladys, how did you get into your industry?
Okay. Well, I'm the fourth generation in this industry. Yep, fourth generation. During middle school, I had a guidance counselor to come to my parents' house, and he thought that it would be a good idea for me to enter into the mortuary science field. And actually, he brought me books on mortuary science. Wow. And so, starting then, I knew that upon graduating high school that I would attend a college that had the mortuary science program.
All right. So, Rose, can you tell me, why is estate planning so important?
Well, if you die without a will, the state of Maryland has a will for you. But
so I've heard.
Yes, there are statutes in place. So many people do die without wills, but if you have your will in place, then we know what your desires are. We're not looking at what the state of Maryland is guessing what your desires would be. So it's better to manage it and plan it ahead of time. You're going to help avoid family fighting and help your loved ones carry on what you wanted to do. So it's just a real important way to plan and make sure that your family honors what you would like to do.
Okay. So what is probate?
The court supervision of administering your estate after you die. So the will gets filed with the courthouse along with the death certificate, and then the process begins where you file accountings, and then eventually the court approves the closing of that, the estate it's called, and then the assets are distributed as according to the terms of your will.
Okay. If a will isn't done, could the family end up having to pay all of the deceased's bills?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So
You have to pay the funeral bill. You have to pay the court costs. You have to pay the attorney fees. There's a certain priority of what gets paid. If the decedent had credit card bills or anything like that, those creditors could file claims against the estate, and then they would get paid as well.
Gladys, that brings me to you. What can a person do in advance so that they don't leave their family with all the bills to pay?
Yes. So the state of Maryland allows licensed funeral establishments there are two vehicles that we can use. One is where we can fund a pre-need trust account.
Okay.
And the second is using an insurance. So the first one, the escrow or / trust account, where the family can come in, make their selections of of what type of services they want, whether it be a traditional funeral, burial,
Right.
or cremation.
Okay.
And then they can select their merchandise. For an example, it could be a casket or an urn
Okay.
and some other materials. And so once they've done that, and if they want to go ahead and pay, they can do that. And currently, we guarantee our services and merchandise the cost.
Okay.
So if a family comes in and they're satisfied with the expenses, they can make the payment, and they're locked in for services and merchandise.
So can you share more about that?
And the other vehicle is insurance, and that does the same thing. It's just for the amount of your funeral expenses. So we're not offering, you know, a $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 policy.
Sure.
You would just come in, make your choices for services and for merchandise.
So, Rose, you can you talk to us about, let's say, if I'm terminally ill with cancer or something like that, how do I make future plans so that my family isn't burdened, or my future care or something like that? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
There's a document called Advance Directive, and in that document you can name someone to make your medical decisions for you if you no longer have capacity. And it also allows you to, ahead of time, tell us if you have a terminal illness such as cancer, whether you would want to be kept comfortable and allow natural death to occur,
Okay.
or would you like, in addition to being kept comfortable and allow natural death to occur, would you also like to be fed by tube? And then the third choice is you could also ask to have every kind of intervention out there allowed and help you to remain living on. So that is a way to tell your loved ones ahead of time, if I'm in this terminal condition and doctors are saying, you know, it's just a matter of a couple of days and you're very ill, then this is a way to tell your family how you want to be treated.
Okay. So when would someone need a guardian or a personal representative, and what's the difference in those two things?
A personal representative is the person you name in your will after you die. That's the person that runs through the courthouse, basically shepherds the case through the courthouse with the attorney and makes sure that the assets are distributed as you have dictated in your will.
Okay.
So that's a personal representative. Sometimes it's called an executor. In Maryland, we call it a personal representative.
Okay.
Now, guardian is different. In Maryland, we have two kinds of guardians. There's guardian of person and guardian of property. Guardian of person makes decisions about your life, your medical care, where you would go to church, for example, what you do on weekends, where you live. That's the guardian of person. Guardian of property manages your finances. That person oversees all of your money, your assets.
Now, I don't know if you know the answer to this question or not. Can that get difficult if the two people are not working
Not the
together? Yeah.
I suppose it could be, because the guardian of typically it's the same person. But if the guardian of person needs financial assets and the guardian of property is not releasing it, yeah, there could be a problem. But getting a guardian of property and a guardian of person can be very expensive, because basically you're hiring two attorneys to represent the person that doesn't have capacity any longer. They can't make their own decisions. They need a guardian. That person gets their own attorney, and then the person that says, I will take care of them, I will be that guardian, that person gets an attorney. So you're paying for two attorneys. But if you have that advance directive in place, where you've named someone to make your health care decisions, and if you do another document called a power of attorney, you name someone to make your financial decisions for you, you've bypassed that whole guardianship proceeding, and that's the way to do it. The advance directive and the power of attorney.
So the advance directive and the power of attorney, that's the way to do it.
That's to avoid those guardianships. And yeah, and guardianships, yeah, it's expensive, and then every year you have to file an accounting with the court. It's
Okay, so we don't want to do that. Okay. What about, do your services, do you help people to figure out how to do their medical bills, if they have if they're sick, or if they have a loved one that is sick? Do you service in that area to help them to determine, because I was looking at some of the things on the internet, and I was wondering, like if you had let's say a mother who is 80 years old and she lives in another state and she needs help with getting her bills and things taken care of. Is that something that you can assist with, someone that does your type of law?
Well, that would be a place where you would either, hopefully she has a power of attorney in place, but if not, we would want to get a guardian of property for her.
Okay.
In her state.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other things that you are specializing in with regards to this topic that you're servicing your clients in?
Well, I think when clients come to me, I think often they'll come to me and say, well, I need my will. And so we'll talk about the will, but then I also explain to them the advantages of having that power of attorney and advance directive in place. So it's really 3 documents that is part of an estate plan. And then further, sometimes people, as I get through the consultation, I'll recommend a trust sometimes for them. And there's all kinds of different trusts, and we could spend a whole nother day or topic on that, but if they have minor children, they would want to provide a trust for their children so they don't inherit at age 18. Instead, they'll inherit at age 25 or 30 or 80, whenever they decide.
I've heard of that. So tell us more about that. Can a child undo that, let's say, before the appointed time?
Nothing they can do. So that's a way to kind of control from the grave.
Absolutely, I've always heard that.
Yeah, and it's a trust that only comes into being after both parents are deceased and there's some assets. So it doesn't necessarily actually become a trust. It only comes into being if these certain conditions happen, which is 2 parents have both died. So you would name a trustee to manage the inheritance for the children until whatever age you determine. So that's one kind of trust. Some people have tax implications, and so we do some trust planning. If they have real estate in 2 different states, a trust makes sense. So there's if they have special needs children, special needs trusts are great for that.
So what would that look like for a special needs child?
What we do is we say the parents can control their assets, and if it gets a little complicated, but the special needs child might be eligible for some government programs like Medicaid. And so if they have more than $2,000 in assets, they are not eligible for Medicaid any longer. So in order to allow them to continue in Medicaid, and if the parents were to die and there were some assets that the special needs child could inherit, instead we put it in a trust.
Okay.
For benefit of that special needs child. And then they still have they don't have exactly access to the trust money, but they have the benefit of it. And then they continue in that structured program of Social Security, SSI or SSDI, and then Medicaid, and then they have the trust.
Rose, give me some clarity. Say I suddenly pass away and I have no will. Tell me exactly what the state will do, because I've heard for years, you've got to get that will done or else the state will take everything.
Maryland has a will for you. That's what we say.
That's just it.
So we have, and so if you were to die without a will, and if you're married, your property would pass to your spouse and children. If it's jointly owned with somebody, it just goes to that person. We have ways of figuring out how to distribute the property.
Had you heard that before? I'd always heard that.
Right, right. But that's why it's good to have
That's why it's
like
good
Rose.
to have attorneys like Rose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So we heard it right here from the horse's mouth. That that's not going to happen to you. So let me ask you this, Gladys. You have someone that comes to you and they don't have anything in place. They have nothing. Do you, because I've noticed a lot of people are getting cremated, so this is speculation on my part here. I don't know, is it less expensive? Or what would you recommend to them?
No, well, cremation is less than the traditional services, because with traditional, you certainly have a funeral, you have cemetery expenses,
all of
and all.
that.
So yes, cremation is.
You would consider recommending that?
Well, we try to leave it up to the family. We try not to let them say that's the say that's their first option.
Okay.
We do try to work with them, and with the advent of the social media, a lot of times with the
Oh, the GoFundMe.
the GoFundMe,
Yeah, that's true.
we've used that quite a bit. And you know, in our area, a lot of families know each other, and so they will help contribute to you know, help with the services.
Services, that type of thing.
Correct.
Have your paths ever crossed before?
Well, I think sometimes, you know, the families come to Sewell Funeral Home not knowing what the next step is. They know they do have a funeral service,
Right.
but then what? And so Gladys could say, you know, you might want to give Rose a call. She can help you navigate through the courthouse and get that estate settled.
And is that a lengthy process? Give us a little more detail.
It's a minimum of 6 months. We allow creditors to come forward. So we can't close the estate for at least 6 months. But
Wow.
I would say typically it's a 1-year process.
Okay. Do you feel
Depending.
most people are aware of this and what to do? Are we getting better with it? Or
No.
no?
No.
No. So,
No. I mean, I think there's a lot online, and certainly you can educate yourself. There's a lot. The Register of Wills of Maryland has a great website with a lot of good information. So, yeah, I think the information is there, but it's confusing, and there's sometimes strategies that you would want that you wouldn't find online. You know, you should talk to an attorney.
you should talk to an attorney for sure. So other than online, are there other ways that we should be looking to get educated? Who's doing this type of education to let folks know, you know, you need to handle this estate plan? Because I have to admit, when I was younger, I would hear that and go, oh, well, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, what's that all about? And so, how are people getting educated now?
Well, certainly I hold seminars.
I didn't know you were doing that.
Well, the public library invited me to do a seminar on estate planning. I think that's one way of getting the word out. That
Okay.
And
At what age should you start estate planning?
That's
I'm
exactly
sorry.
what I was just going to say, because many people are younger and they think, well, I don't own anything, or why would I want a will? And I probably would agree with them, but I think if you have minor children, gosh, you want to have that will in place, because we don't want them to, I don't think you would want your children to inherit at age 18. And then also you would want to name a guardian for those children to raise them until they're age 18. So I think if you have minor children, you would want to have a will in place and a power of attorney and advance directive. And then, you know, if you get substantial assets, if you inherit money, if you win the lottery, there's all kinds of ways, but if you get into a different wealth position, you would want to talk to an estate planning attorney.
So I've heard of estate planning. Is there a large amount of estate planning attorneys? Are they hard to find? I don't want you to say anything negative about attorneys, though, but you
won't.
and you won't. So
Not everybody concentrates in this area of law. There's certainly, you know, general practitioners probably
could do some of it.
Yeah, they
But they would probably, if they had some difficulty, they'd get on the phone and say, you know, I better call you know, the law office of Rose Crumpleton to find out exactly.
Yeah, it can get complicated.
So you're saying you need to start this at a young age, particularly if you have children. You want to start planning that way.
Sure.
And have you ever had a client where, let's say it's the children, younger children, and they've got parents or grandparents, and they really need to figure this out? How do you approach that? And they're like, well, I don't think I need that kind of thing.
How did the children approach their parents and say, it's time? That's a sensitive discussion. You're right.
Do you have any advice on how they should do that? Or you don't want to throw any of the fear factor or anything like that in,
I think it's just one of those Sunday afternoons, you know, Dad, can we talk?
And
We really do need to talk. We want to do this before you either become incapacitated and can't manage anything, or, you know, before you die or pass. We want to make sure everything's in place, and we want to be as helpful as possible, and we want to make sure you're comfortable as possible.
Well, that's a good way to say it, for sure. I would say it like that. So Gladys, let me ask you, and you said 4th generation, right?
Correct.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
So I've always been curious, because of the kind of work that you do. And you mentioned the books that your guidance counselor brought to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just say yes or no. But I kind of feel like you're almost borderline being a doctor to a degree. You must there are a lot of medical things that, in terms, I'm sure, that you need to know and understand to do what you do.
Correct. The mortuary science program,
Mm-hmm.
science, we certainly had to do, take anatomy, chemistry, pathology,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of, and the reason being is that the causes of death,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the embalming process,
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand what was the cause of death, and therefore you could, know how you would proceed with embalming.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
So,
So let me ask
so
you.
at least it's a 2 year. We didn't have to go as far in school as
but
physician, but so when I was in mortuary school, it was you could get an associate's or you could get a certificate. It's
Really?
been
But now
quite a
it's
while.
become-
Yeah, so I have an associate's in mortuary science. So, yeah.
Would you? Is it a career that many people are going into? Because I will tell you this. This is my stylist wasn't available, so I used her assistant to do my hair recently, and that's something that he's really interested in doing. And I got to thinking, okay, they need to know all these formulas to color hair, this, that, and the other. Mortuary science, that's kind of a connection there. And this is a really young person, and I thought, wow. So that's really good that that's a career that he's pursuing. So do you think that's a career that it's a young person should consider pursuing?
It's not bad, okay. But I feel that a young person, it's good to probably have the degree, but I do think that the young person should experience other parts of life.
Okay.
And I kind of like base it on my life because
Okay.
I had other jobs. I knew that I could come back to the family business.
Sure.
And I know everyone doesn't have that ability to do that. So, but once I graduated from mortuary school, I didn't go directly into the family business. I worked at a hospital. I worked in medical records. I even worked in a surveyor's office. So I just think having that experience doing other things, and you get background and information. So personally, I think
So
that
you're saying if you want to do it, that's fine, but you should pursue some other things and just determine if that's really what you want to do, if that's a good fit for you?
yes,
Something along those lines?
because it can be demanding, particularly if you, I think for a small
Have
firm,
a business like you guys, I would think it is pretty demanding. 'Cause
right? And so you put in some long hours, so that's why I feel that it may be good to learn some other things.
Other things as well.
Right.
But if you have a passion for it, you're not going to say don't do it. If you got that passion and they say they want to do it,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't say don't,
you
but
let them in the door.
yeah, but it
Okay.
is definitely demanding.
All right.
Right.
Wow. So is law as demanding?
Sure, it is demanding.
I know it is. It's a lot. So have I missed any of the other services that you do? Because right now I want you to, as we spoke before the show, I want you to look into your camera. I want you to share your business and your services and what you have to offer, where we can find you. And so you're in camera 3, so I want you to share
Okay.
that information, Rose.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Rose Crunkleton. I have an office in Dunkirk, Maryland. My website is rosecrunkletonlaw.com. I provide estate planning services, probate services, trust administration, guardianships. I also do some corporate work. Sometimes people own a small business and they need special planning purposes there. So, review contracts. I'm here to help.
Okay, you give your website.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Gladys, I'd like for you to do the same, and you're in camera 1. Share where you can be found and your services,
Okay.
whatever you'd like.
All right, thank you. I'm Gladys Sewell Brown, owner of Sewell Funeral Home, which is in Prince Frederick, Maryland, and that is in Calvert County. So our services are funeral services, where we do traditional services, also with burial. We also offer cremation services, and we also do monuments, tombstones.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
And
our
welcome-
website.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Our website is www.sewellfuneralhome.com. We have quite a bit of information on our services that we can provide.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope you all found this to be really educational, because it is sometimes a topic that we really don't like to talk about, but it really is important that we do the proper planning. And I think that we've got two folks here that could really get you on a good path if you want to start that conversation and put some things in place for yourself and loved ones. And so I want to thank you so much, Rose,
Thank
for
you.
being here today. It was a real pleasure meeting you.
Well,
I
it's been
enjoyed you.
delightful. Thank
Same
you.
here. And to my dear friend Gladys Sewell Brown, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you. And I thank you for introducing me to Rose. She's a sheer delight.
Oh, yes.
She
Yes, she
is.
is. Yes. Yeah, you're
So
welcome.
this is the Pathfinder show for today. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can contact me on Facebook if you want to be on the show, or if you have a product or a service or a story that you want to share that can help someone to get on a healthier path in life. Just message me and we can talk about that. So until next time, I'm Toni Gorman, your Pathfinder.